After spending some time with it, I thought it might be helpful to share what I have noticed so far. Because living with a tankless heater is less about the brochure stuff and more about what it feels like on a normal week when people are showering, washing dishes, and somebody keeps turning on another faucet. At a basic level, this is an electric tankless water heater that mounts on a wall and heats water only when you open a hot tap. I see it making the most sense for someone who is tired of running out of hot water, or someone who wants to get rid of a bulky tank taking up space, or someone who just wants simpler day-to-day hot water without a storage tank sitting there staying hot all day. It is not automatically the right choice for every house, though, because the electrical needs are real, and the amount of hot water you can get at once depends on how cold your incoming water is and how many fixtures you are trying to run at the same time. What makes this unit different in day-to-day use is how it handles demand when you ask for more hot water than it can comfortably heat at your set temperature. Instead of giving you water that slowly turns lukewarm, it manages the situation by limiting flow to keep the temperature closer to what you picked. That sounds like a small detail, but in a shower it changes the experience. I would rather have a slightly lower flow than a temperature that swings around. The unit itself is smaller than most people expect when they hear the words water heater. It is a clean, white box that sits flat on the wall, and it does not look like something that has to be hidden. The front has a simple display and a dial. I like that because when I want to change the temperature, I do not have to press a bunch of buttons or guess where I am in a menu. I just turn the dial and I can see the temperature change right away. The casing feels solid enough for something that is going to sit in a utility space for years. It is not fancy. It just feels like a practical appliance. Setup is the part I took the most seriously because this is not a plug-in appliance. In my case, the electrical side was the main event. This model needs two double-pole 50-amp breakers, and it uses thick wire. There is no neutral wire for this unit, which is one less thing to deal with, but you still need the right service and panel capacity to do it safely. I am comfortable with basic home projects, but I did not treat this like a casual do-it-yourself install. I planned it, I checked the space in the panel, and I made sure the wiring and breakers matched what the manual calls for. If you are not fully comfortable working in an electrical panel, this is the moment to bring in an electrician, because the unit itself is not the risky part. The risky part is doing the electrical work wrong. Mounting it on the wall was straightforward. It is light enough that I was not wrestling with it. Water connections were typical plumbing work, nothing unusual, and there is no venting, which is nice because you are not cutting holes through walls or dealing with combustion air. Once it was mounted and connected, day-to-day use got simple fast. It just sits there and does its job. There is no warm-up routine. When you open a hot tap, it wakes up and starts heating. In real use, the main thing I cared about was shower stability. I have used systems where the water goes hot, then cool, then hot again when someone else uses water in the house. With this unit, I noticed fewer temperature surprises than I expected, but I want to be honest about what is really going on. A tankless unit cannot create more heat than it can create, so when demand goes up, it has to respond somehow. With this one, the response is usually a flow reduction rather than a temperature drop. So if somebody starts another shower or turns on the kitchen sink, I am more likely to feel the shower flow soften a bit instead of getting hit with cold water. In my house, that is a better trade. I did a simple test because I wanted to see what it would actually do. With the water set up for maximum flow before heating, I measured about 6.5 gallons per minute at a fixture. When I turned the heater on and set a higher temperature, the unit limited flow to around 2 gallons per minute. That sounds dramatic, but it lined up with what I experienced in practice. When the incoming water is cooler and you want the output hotter, you do not get unlimited flow. You get a stable temperature at a lower flow rate. During a shower, I noticed it most when I tried to run other hot water at the same time. The shower stayed comfortable, but the overall hot water flow available to the house was clearly being managed. Temperature control is one of the better parts of living with it. The display gives you a real-time sense of what is happening, and changing the set temperature is quick. I do not constantly adjust it. I found a temperature that works for my household and I leave it there. When I do change it, like if I want it cooler for kids or warmer for cleaning, I can do it in seconds and move on. Something people ask about with tankless units is that annoying moment where you shut the water off briefly, then turn it back on and get a little burst of cold before the heat catches up again. I have noticed a little of that in certain situations, usually when I am quickly cycling a bathroom faucet on and off. In regular showers and normal dishwashing, it has not been a daily frustration. It is more like a quirk you learn exists. Then you stop thinking about it because your routine does not trigger it often. Energy use is hard to explain without turning into a spreadsheet, so I will keep it practical. My old tank heater heated water all day whether I used it or not. With this unit, it only draws serious power when hot water is running. I did notice a change in how my home uses electricity. It is more spiky when hot water is on, and quieter when it is not. Over time, that has made sense for my household because we are not paying to keep a tank hot when nobody is home. I'm not going to promise a specific bill change because every home is different, but the usage pattern is clearly different. Maintenance has been simple so far. With no tank, I am not dealing with the same sediment and flushing routine in the same way as a traditional tank. I still pay attention to water quality, and I keep an eye on how it behaves. Because any water heater can suffer if you have hard water, but my day-to-day involvement has been basically none. If something seems off, the display gives you enough information to know it is time to investigate instead of guessing in the dark. There are limitations that matter. The big one is electrical capacity. If your panel is already crowded or your service cannot support the load, the project gets more complicated. This is not a small toaster-level appliance. It is a serious electrical device, and that is part of the deal with electric tankless. Another limitation is the reality of flow in colder climates. When the incoming water is very cold, the unit has to work harder to raise it to a comfortable shower temperature, and the way it protects temperature is by limiting flow. If you live somewhere with very cold groundwater, you should go in expecting lower hot water flow in winter, especially if multiple people are using hot water at once. For my household, the overall experience has been steady and predictable, which is what I want from something as unglamorous as a water heater. I get consistent hot showers. I am not running out of hot water because a tank emptied, and I like the space savings. I also like that once it is set up correctly, I do not think about it much, and that is kind of the point. If you are considering it, I would frame it like this. If you have the electrical capacity and you want stable hot water without a storage tank, it does what it is supposed to do. If you want to run several high-flow fixtures at once while keeping a high temperature, you are going to run into the limits, and you should be honest about your household habits before you commit. I will leave all the information about the Stiebel Eltron Tempra 24 plus tankless electric water heater in the comments. I hope to see you again in the following videos.